Why was Aragorn, first and foremost, ready to meet Frodo at the pony when he was told to wait? Or was it merely a happy coincidence? Hello, everyone. This is about the pony. When Frodo and his companions arrived, it was more than just casual. It saved their lives. They were in Bree, and in the days that followed, as they journeyed to Rivendell, Frodo and the ring could have been lost. Gandalf hadn't instructed him to wait there, and the hobbits didn't expect him, so why was he present? To understand this, we must recognize that Aragorn had been involved in the hunt for the ring and Gandalf's plans for decades by this time. I even made a video about his and Gandalf's pursuit of Gollum over the past 20 years if you're interested. After his father's death, Aragorn was raised in Rivendell, though his true identity was kept from him for a while by Elrond. By his early 20s, he knew who he was and ventured into the wild. He was the chieftain of the Dunedain of the North by birth, and the Rangers still watched over the lands of the former kingdom of Arnor. Consequently, he would also be a ranger. The Rangers were his to command, and the land was his ancestral home. He took his obligations seriously, one of which was the protection of Arnor, particularly the Shire, which retained some sense of identity and recognition of the king's rule. At some point, we're told, 62 years before the events of The Lord of the Rings, Aragorn and Gandalf met. This was to be expected. They both loved that part of the world, and their missions to protect the peoples of Middle-earth obviously overlapped. Over the years, they had become somewhat of a team. Aragorn had explored much of Middle-earth during this time, and Gandalf had encouraged him to take special care in protecting the Shire. This wasn't just about safeguarding a region Gandalf cherished. It was also about recognizing the significance of the Shire and the Hobbits. As Gandalf learned more about Bilbo's ring, the need for protection increased, not just by Aragorn, but by the Rangers under his command. The Shire, and all of Arnor more broadly, needed safeguarding. This is how Aragorn came to know the area around Bree so well, becoming known there as Strider. He was always striding around, keeping an eye on things for reasons he preferred not to disclose. His reputation for being secretive was understandable, especially given his fondness for Barlaman's wonderful inn, an oasis of good beer and company in troubled times. For the better part of 17 years, however, once Gandalf grew suspicious of Bilbo's ring, it was Aragorn, sometimes with Gandalf, sometimes alone, who hunted down Gollum even as far afield as Mordor. If we ever needed proof of how close Aragorn and Gandalf were, and how much Aragorn trusted Gandalf, it's here. Aragorn left his only family and the love of his life in Rivendell for 17 years, following a hunch Gandalf had. Eventually, Aragorn found and captured Gollum, leaving him with the elves of northern Mirkwood. After that, he made his way back west to resume his duties guarding the Shire, meeting Gandalf on the 1st of May at the Ford, a crossing over the Brandywine River, one of the few entry points to the Shire from the east and south. At this point, Aragorn was pretty much up to speed. He knew Frodo had the ring, and Gandalf informed him of the plan for Frodo to leave the Shire for Rivendell in the last week of September. Gandalf wouldn't go far. Everything seemed under control. The elves had Gollum imprisoned, and Gandalf said he would stay with Frodo a bit longer. Given all this, Aragorn thought he could take a few weeks off. He set off on a journey of his own. To be honest, this is a bit of a mystery. Tolkien doesn't tell us where he went. As king in exile, he was a busy man, so perhaps we shouldn't fret over it too much. He was likely attending to King in exile business, or maybe nipped back to Rivendell to see Arwen, given a hint of all that was to come. That makes sense for Aragorn, and I'm sure we can all forgive him for leaving his post for that reason. But wherever he went, he clearly wasn't getting any news updates, because upon his return, he was shaken by the news that everything had started to go wrong. The Black Riders were abroad, hunting for the ring. The Hobbits had left Hobbiton, but no one knew where they were, and Gandalf himself had gone missing, apparently without leaving word of where he was or when he would return. What was Aragorn to do? Aragorn was resourceful, and I'm sure he considered a few options. However, his priority, in Gandalf's absence, had to be helping the ring-bearer and the other hobbits reach Rivendell. Crucially, he didn't seem to be privy to Frodo's plan, as Gandalf had disappeared before they had a chance to work it through in detail. Of course, Frodo's own plans were disrupted by the Black Riders, and then by the discovery that his friends had understood his mission long ago, and had planned for his escape from the Shire through the Old Forest and the Barrow Downs. In the absence of any other information, Aragorn stationed himself by the east road out of the Shire, hoping the hobbits would come along it. It wasn't a bad plan. The hobbits were presumably still heading for Rivendell, which lay to the east, and the east road was the most direct route there, albeit the most public. He mostly left his rangers stationed at the Ford, where they had a battle with the Black Riders a few days later, so they would find out if the hobbits went that way instead. What is a ranger to do when they have to hide beside a road for a while? Aragorn seems to have found a comfy, secretive spot behind a hedge. He later tells the hobbits the rest of the story when he secures a private meeting with them at the Prancing Pony. I was behind the hedge this evening on the road west of Bree, when 4 hobbits came out of the downlands. I need not repeat all that they said to old Bombadil, or to one another, but one thing interested me. "Please remember," said one of them, "that the name Baggins must not be mentioned. I am Mr. Underhill, if any name must be given." That interested me so much that I followed them here. I slipped over the gate just behind them. "I don't see what interest my name has for anyone in Bree," Frodo said angrily. "I have still to learn why it interests you, Mr. Strider." "He may have an honest reason for spying and eavesdropping," Frodo continued, "but if so, I should advise him to explain it well." Strider laughed. "But the explanation is simple. I was looking for a hobbit called Frodo Baggins. I wanted to find him quickly. I had learned that he was carrying out of the Shire a secret that concerned me and my friends. So, really, Aragorn was at the Prancing Pony because he followed Frodo there. He had been hiding behind a hedge, saw the hobbits, and followed them. Now, of course, all of this might have been avoided if Barlaam had just remembered to pass on that letter from Gandalf, which would have informed the hobbits exactly who Aragorn was. So they would know to keep an eye out for him. But it also would have meant them leaving the Shire a couple of months earlier, so they might have missed him completely while he was off on his mysterious journey. Anyway, Aragorn was in Bree, waiting for Frodo and the other hobbits, not because he had received any particular instructions from Gandalf to do so, but because he hadn't. He was concerned. Gandalf wasn't the sort to abandon his work, and he had said he would accompany the hobbits. So, thinking on his feet, Aragorn decided he would have to take the lead and guide the hobbits to Rivendell himself without Gandalf. This is a much overlooked bit of foreshadowing for what happens later. After the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, Gandalf is closest to the Hobbits and acts as their protector in the wider world. But when he isn't there, the person who steps up is Aragorn. If you'd like to see more,